I mean, there's one thing that they could potentially do with classic Doctors thinking about it. I think it would be a little bit lame, but they could have it. They only appear through an audio cameo. Like you just hear them. I
Yeah.
mean, didn't all the remaining Doctors kind of record stuff for Dave the Doctor when they all
Nah, none of
appear?
them. None of them.
Did they not record new stuff?
No, but I've got some William Hartnell stuff about the Dave the Doctor I can drop when we get to Hartnell. But
Oh,
all of it
okay.
is dialogue straight from the show. None of them were asked back apart from TB.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I misheard them.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in terms of Colin Baker making a full visual appearance, I feel like without using the excuse that they used in the that Children in Need special about timey-wimey stuff aging the appearance.
oh
I
yeah,
can't quite
Time
remember
Crash.
what.
I can't remember what it is,
Yeah,
but no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, but without using that as an excuse or going the whole curator route. Although I think the curator route doesn't really work because Tom Baker says we revisit a few old favorites, and without sounding too rude, Colin Baker's Doctor isn't really considered a favorite.
Have you seen that video of Colin Baker slating the curator thing at a convention?
I mean, weren't all the classic Doctors a little bit So they bring back Tom Baker, but not
The
the rest of us.
the story I've heard is that none of them knew Tom Baker. Well, okay, this is sort of a two-part story. None of them knew Tom Baker was going to be in the 50th. I don't know how much you remember about that night on the BBC, but what the BBC did was on BBC One, they showed the 50th, and on BBC Three in the Red Button, they had like a special after party thing, and the room was filled with past doctors, past companions, showrunners, producers, ex-producers, directors, like filled with like Noel Clarke was there, Nicholas Briggs was there,
Was it filmed
anybody.
live?
Sorry,
Was it filmed live?
yeah, yeah, it was all live, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're all there.
Yes, it was all of them reacting to the show. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And Colin Baker slated that. He said it was such a ridiculous thing to have us all in the same room. And he says he sat there with Peter and Sylvester, and all of a sudden, Tom Baker's on the screen.
Quite obvious to us that classic Doctors were not required on Voyage for this particular one, which is why we made five-ish Doctors, which people have been kind enough to say they enjoyed, because it did do something. It gave the fans what we knew they rather wanted, to have a nod to all of us, when clearly the BBC didn't see the necessity. So when we watched it, and we were all watched it together on that night of that stupid party they put on television, with all the companions sitting there, not knowing why they were there, being ignored. It was very badly done. We watched it, and there was Tom being the, what was he called? The curator. No, he wasn't the curator, it was Tom Baker, who played the fourth Doctor, looking like the fourth Doctor, and the dialogue was, oh, it's not the fourth Doctor, is it? Yes, it is. It was just, I thought it was uncomfortable, a little irritating that Tom had been singled out to be in it and the rest of us hadn't. But, you know, I should be used to that in my business, because the acting business is one we get rejection all the time. But it was just odd. And it looked, the programme would have worked perfectly without that bit.
Tom Baker isn't at this event, but
No.
he's suddenly he's on the screen, and it's sort of that. I imagine, I respect their opinion of that's a bit shitty. We should have at least been informed
Yeah.
that this was happening. At the same time, when they did the five-ish Doctors, which we've totally got to do an episode on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've never seen the five-ish Doctors.
Oh, you'll really like it. The story is that it's the classic Doctors trying to get into the 50th, and one of these classic Doctors is Paul McGann. Now, in the story of the five-ish Doctors, it's Paul McGann. Not really that interested. He's sort of playing it cool about not being in the 50th, but he's actually on the phone trying to get into it. unbeknownst
Yeah.
to Davison, Sylvester McCoy, and Colin Baker, whilst they were actually filming the Five-ish Doctors, McGann had already filmed his return for the Night of the Doctor, but couldn't tell them.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it'll be a similar situation with Tom Baker that with the 50th, that they wanted to keep those kind of cameos and specials wrapped in mystery. Obviously, they were public about David Tennant coming back, but they wanted to hold some things, keep some of their cards hidden.
So then the other thing is that a few years later, Colin Baker's at a convention and he gets asked about the Curator and basically slates it, saying it's disrespectful to the previous incarnation's Doctor. Why was Tom Baker, selected to be the Curator? And I understand it from that point of view, but I also think you have to take the ego edge off it and the fact that you also used to be a Doctor and understand that to the general public, Tom Baker and David Tennant are the two actors who will more than likely always be seen as the Doctor, especially Tom Baker. Yeah. He did it for the longest. Yeah. He's the most loved. Even people who haven't watched a lot of his episodes, I've only watched a selected few, but I know his importance in the show. And you wouldn't have had the reaction from fan bases if Matt Smith had stood up at the end and turned around and it was Colin Baker. No offense, or Sylvester McCoy or Peter Davison. The only way you were going to get that reaction was Tom Baker, someone who had never returned to the role. Someone who never returned to the show at all.
Yeah, like the only Doctor who could get a similar reaction to what Tom Baker got at this point would be Christopher Eccleston. But even then, I don't think it was as big of a reaction.
And those reactions are character based. I don't think those reactions are. I love this character. It's. I never ever thought I would see this. I remember when that happened, I was sat watching it, and I remember hearing Tom Baker speak, and my mum being like, "Oh my god!" And I was like looking at my mum going, "It's like the camera pans and you see the back of his head, and it's this grey head." And I was like, "Oh, is it Pete Capaldi?" Yeah. And then it cuts, and it's Tom Baker, and I remember just like, I'm pretty sure I started welling up like when it happened because I was like. Yeah. I never thought I would see this. Like, that those actors aren't going to come back and play that role, but to actually have them in the show interacting with the first Doctor, the current Doctor, it was so amazing.